Do you suffer from the debilitating symptoms of chronic pain, swelling, and loss of joint motion due to arthritis? Are you taking drugs like Celebrex and Vioxx or other super aspirin prescriptions? If you are, you're increasing the risk of heart attack and stroke by up to 50%. This is Dr. Tom Roselle, host of Dr. Tom Roselle Live Sundays at 12 noon. Why live with pain or the dangerous side effects of drugs when the doctors at the Roselle Center for Healing, practicing 21st century integrative medicine, can help you experience relief like never before? Simple, safe chiropractic, acupuncture, and nutritional care can provide significant relief from arthritic pain in less than 6 weeks. More than 70% of our patients experience a return to life far beyond their expectations. Give yourself the best gift possible, freedom from arthritic pain, naturally. Call today to schedule an appointment. Call 703-698-7117 or visit online at rosellecare.com.
Dr. Tom Roselle Live right now on 105.9 FM and AM 630 WMAL.
Welcome to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. Yep, I'm in studio. It's beautiful outside. It's almost the beginning of the year, and Happy New Year to everybody. Waiting for your phone calls at 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. Love to talk to you. We're going to talk about you today. We're going to talk about how you can make 2013 the best year you've ever had, ever. No matter where you are, what your state is, how you can begin to move forward instead of moving backwards or being stuck where you are. 2013's got to be a whole better year. So Happy New Year, everybody. This is a day that we're going to set goals, and I'm going to teach you how to do it. I'm going to show you how to put one foot in front of the other and make things different, far different than they've ever been. 888-630-9625. I'll talk about your problems, and we'll see if we can put a fix to them. Perhaps you've tried and you've applied. You've done everything you can to try to turn the worms, so to speak, but you failed. Well, I'm going to show you how to get it done. And if we follow the steps we're going to talk about today in goal setting, in setting strategies for our life to be able to do something different. You know, you're sitting out there, those of you have, joined gyms already, you're getting ready to get into the new year, you're going to hit the gym. And the truth of it is, after the first quarter, the majority of you are gone. You quit. You're done. You're finished. Those of you are going to start on diets. I'm going to detox. I'm going to clean out. I'm going to do whatever it is that you've said. You will quit. You're finished. How can I say that? Well, because after being in practice 36 years, I hear all the promises and I hear all the people say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and you never step up completely. You do it for a little bit of time. Or you say, I'll try, try is like Vince Lombardi says, like kissing your sister. It really doesn't hold a lot of anything, right? It's not a big deal. So what trying is, and we could say like Yoda, in Star Wars, that there is no try, there either do or you don't. So let me show you how we're going to do this for you in 2013. Remember, the reason that this program is here is to give you an opportunity to change virtually anything that you want in your life right now. See, as long as you're breathing and you're hearing me, that says that you have an opportunity. You have the capacity, the ability to change anything and something. So it comes down to, what is it that you want? Most people fail completely in life because they can't identify, they can't articulate, they can't envision, they can't imbue, they can't take it to themselves in a very clear, concise way what it is that they really want. They can't decide anything. So if you can't make that decision, you're already stuck. So for the sake of argument, take out a piece of paper and a pencil. Forget your iPads. We're going to engage your brain today. And to engage the right side of your creative capacity, the right side of your brain, you got to be able to scribble on something. You got to be able to use a pencil to be able to expand the paradigm. So take out a piece of paper, and we're going to do a little workshop today. And obviously I'll take your phone calls and I'll answer your questions. But in the meantime, we're going to set some standards. And the standards are important if you're going to move forward. So the first thing I want you to do today, as you're listening to the program as we're talking, I want you to write down 5 things that you want desperately for yourself, about yourself. Now, we're talking physically. I don't care about your money, because money comes if you have your health. Everything else that you want in life will come if you have the capacity, physically, spiritually, emotionally, to be able to do what you need to do to get that done. So you got to start with health. Health has to be your number one value, bar anything else. So if you have been sitting in a place of fatigue, or your brain doesn't work the way it's supposed to, or you're over fat, or you're just, sitting there with stiff bones and you can't get up and you just keep saying, well, what do I expect from my age? Well, you're stuck unless you change the way your brain works. So we're going to change the way your brain works, okay? So the first thing that you have to do is decide, put down 5 things that you want, and then what I want you to do is I want you to put them in the order of importance, the things that are most critical to you. And remember, they have to be positive affirmations. They can't be, well, I'm going to try to do this. I want to lose some weight. So your body doesn't know what lose weight means. You can say that, once you've dropped a pound or maybe 3, I've lost the weight. See, over the holidays, since Halloween up until January 1st, some of you have put on some poundage. Maybe, if you were lucky, 2-3 pounds. And if you did the national average, you're about 15 pounds. So you've been shoving stuff into your face, you've been eating stuff, you've been consuming things, you've been doing things to your body that you wouldn't do to your enemy, but you did it to yourself. So here's the repair shop. We're going to repair it today. We're going to fix it. So after you write down these 5 things that are critical, that are important to you, the next thing that you have to do is ask the question, who do I have to become? Who do I have to be to have that outcome? If you were 195 pounds and you're only 5'4" and you want to be 160 pounds, then your goal is not losing that weight differential. The goal is I want to be 160 pounds. I want to weigh 160 pounds. It's not that I need to get my blood pressure down. It's I want a blood pressure of 118/72. It's not that, I got to drop my blood sugar. It's that I want a blood sugar level of 85. I want an A1C hemoglobin of 5.5. So the next question after you become specific, after you become definitive, is simply this. Who do I have to be? Who do I have to be like? Who do I have to become? Who do I have to structure myself after to achieve that? Because unless you begin to change who you are, you're doomed to repeat the same old situation, the same old failures, the same old deprivation of yourself that you've always done. You're going to end up in the same place because you're going to go back to what's comfortable. See, you have to get leverage on yourself. And what I'm talking about is emotional leverage. You have to learn how to ask better questions. If you ask yourself the question, why am I 245 pounds? Because your brain's going to come back and say, because you're a pig. Because you eat too much. And so that's a lousy question. You don't want to do that to yourself. How many of you listening to me right now ask that stupid question? That's a foolish question. It's not something that you want to do. The question is how do I become 185 pounds? And if you're a man, somewhere between 10 and 16% body fat. If you're a woman, somewhere between 18 and 22% body fat. Eat well, have tremendous vitality, have great energy, and enjoy the process along the way. See, that's a different question. Actually, it's a different set of questions. If you ask the right question, your outcome will be different. If you ask the wrong questions, then you're going to get the same stuff, because your body is already synced and linked into a mindset that has produced what you have. See, the Shintos have a very interesting statement. They say, where you are right now at this moment in time is absolutely perfect. It's absolutely the way it's meant to be. You are where you are is of design. And the fact is that you're there, right? You're there. So that's the substantiation for that statement. But it doesn't preclude its change. You have to make that choice. You have to decide, I ain't going to take it anymore. This is not okay. My health is more important to me. My vitality is more important to me. If you're having difficulty breathing, if you have an autoimmune problem, if you have an allergy reaction, if you have an arthritic condition, your mind is stuck in that place that is continually producing those things because you're going to symptom remediation instead of allowing yourself to shift and change and turn yourself around. So we have to be able to shift and change it. We have to be able to change you first above everything else. See, I'm not telling you how to do things yet. That's going to come in the second part of the show. What I'm trying to tell you is that for you to achieve anything in 2013, and by the way, anything is possible, you have to first identify what it is with complete and absolute clarity, and then ask yourself the question, Who do I have to be to achieve that? To do all the things consistently on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, on a month-to-month basis, ultimately producing that on an ongoing basis for the rest of my life. And here's the deal. You're going to fall, you're going to bleed, you're going to scrape your knees. How many times you get up and reaffirm where you're headed and who you are and what you're doing, then it'll become possible. See, there's an old story. There's a guy, physician, by the way, that, he goes to, and this guy's got a big old nose, and he's got some scars on his face, and, he goes to this skin surgeon, this plastic surgeon, and he goes to the guy and says, listen, I got to get rid of this nose. It's been in my way all my life. I can't produce. I can't do things. I get into a social situation. I look ugly. And, these scars in my face, the guy looks at him and he says, no problem. He says, I've worked on cases worse than yours. I've had people who've been mutilated. We put them back together. So, they're all set. The guy's excited. They go into surgery. Couple hour, 3 hour surgery later, the guy's all bandaged. 2 days later, the doc comes in and he takes the gauze off, and the doc looks at the face and he says, oh my God, this is great. This is fantastic. And the man says, let me see. And he takes the mirror and puts it in front of his face, and sadness comes over his face. And he looks at the doctor and he says, I don't see anything different. It looks the same to me. See, what we have to do is change the identity of who you are. We can change all kinds of things about you, but if you don't change the reflection in the mirror, if you don't change the inside person, you're never going to change anything. If you go into my book, if you go into Ageless Health, Health is a Do-It-Yourself program, there's a whole section in there about change. And by the way, you can get that book online. You can go to Amazon. You can go to drroselle.com, and we'll also send you the book. And you can apply those principles. So we're going to go through some of those today. We're going to show you how to get it done, and that's the important stuff. Many of you that have heard me lecture over the years know that I quote a guy by the name of Lao Tzu often, who's the father of Chinese medicine. He says, knowing others is intelligent in intelligence. He says, knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength, but mastering yourself is true power. So in 2013, what I want you to do is I want to master yourself. Dedicate this year, 2013, to you. Nobody else, not your friends, not your family, to you. Because if you're okay, everything else around you has a better chance of being okay, because then you can give more of yourself. But if you neglect yourself, if you don't put yourself together, if you don't help yourself together, if you come up with excuses, I'm too busy, I have too much on my plate, I have this appointment, I have that appointment, but you don't schedule yourself as an appointment in your life, you're not going to get anything done. So 2013, we've got to take the steps and move forward. So what are we doing? We're identifying the 5 things that we want, and we're going to put them in order. But these have to be powerful things. Things that, if I could have anything in my life about my health change, what would it be? Those of you that are sick with whatever it is, take the symptoms. Say, I want to breathe better. I want to have better strength. I want to have energy. But quantify it as best you possibly can. Define what that really means. Because if you become haphazard, generalized in your application of this, it's not going to work. You have to be absolutely on spot with this thing, because that's how the brain works. The brain moves towards what it's looking at in specificity faster and more specifically, more precisely than it does anything else. If you don't change anything, if you try to do what you're doing harder and more often, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get more of what you got now. You're just going to produce the same thing. Is that what you want? I don't think so. Because if it was, you wouldn't be listening to me today. You're going to say, okay, come on, Doc, get on with this thing. Tell us how we can get this done. Well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to tell you the 6 human needs. I'm going to talk to you about the application of who you are relative to what you do and ultimately achieving those health endpoints that you want so desperately in your life but seem to be elusive to you and been put off for so many years. These are the critical components, but we're going to start with you and why you are the primary focus in achieving anything relative to your health. Getting your energy back, knocking the weight down, having, the capacity to think better, clearly, make decisions in a better place. Because if it's not about your health, nothing else is possible. Nothing else is sustainable. You will achieve very little in your life. We're setting goals today. This program is for you, about you, and what you're going to do in 2013. That's right. It is all in your hands. Health is a do-it-yourself program, and you must take control. If you don't, then you know what? You suffer the slings and arrows and the consequences of your inaction. It's not necessarily your action, but your inability, unwillingness, you're not knowing how, whatever, but now you're going to know how, and we're going to help you through that, and step by step by step. If you're kind of, without muscle, if you have no energy, if your blood sugar's up, you're on all kinds of medication, something we call Syndrome X. So many of you, you're on a statin, you're on high blood pressure medication, and now your doctor's starting to suggest that you're borderline diabetic, and you're probably going to have to go on some kind of diabetic medication that's called Syndrome X. That means your system is collapsing. Well, we're going to watch it, your doc says. Well, watch it until you fall apart. I'm going to encourage you that you need to take steps. So what do we say? You got to put down 5 things that are the most I need, want in my life, the most passionate things that you could change about your health, not your financial situation, not your house, not any of those things, but your health. 5 things that you want specifically about yourself. And remember, we have to be detailed, and we have to be specific, and we have to be sensory about these things. So you're only going to do certain things providing that it gives you a sense of predictability in your life. You know that if you do X, Y, and Z, that you're going to get this. That's predictability. That's constancy. Okay, the next thing is actually the antithesis. You want to shake it up a little bit. You want to have a little variety. You want to, make things a little different. So that's number 2 of your human needs. The third piece is it's got to make you feel good. You want to have, that's who I am, man. That's me. It's called significance. And then the next piece is love. You want to love yourself. You want to have others love you. You want to be attractive to somebody. You want to have that sense of emotional zing, that love piece. You want to be able to contribute to the world. You want to be able to give back. Contribution is super important. And the next piece, the last piece, is growth. So those are the 6 human needs. Predictability, variety, significance, love, contribution, and growth. You have to have all of those if you want to stay on something always, if you want to move towards it. Remember what I said, you're always going to fall down a little bit, and how often you get back up and get on your feet is what's important. If you buy into the symptomatic situation, take these pills for the rest of your life, then you're kind of done anyway. If you're buying into that stupid hallucinatory paradigm, then you got a problem. When a doc says, well, you got to take this thyroid medication forever, and you ask them why, I said, well, because your thyroid's not working, that's not a right answer. The right answer is, what's going on with my thyroid? How can I fix it? And what am I doing that's inconsistent or degrading that's producing all those things? So we have to be about who I am and what I'm doing. Okay, so here's the deal. You've got to get leverage, right? Leverage means that enough is enough already. You have to look at that pack of cigarettes and realize what it really is that's being destroyed in your body. That you're going to get cancer, and you have to buy it and believe it. You have to believe that you're not going to have the quality of life. But how do you get to the place where, you get that leverage? Well, Tony Robbins, who's, good friend, but also somebody who came up with something called the quality quantifier. And you can look that up. It's in his books. By the way, it's in my book. And it tells you that you have to, your desire for something, to eat that chocolate, to be slovenly and sit there in front of the tube and, flick the remote, or sit there in front of your iPod and not get out and go for a walk. He tells you that you have to quantify that relative to 0 to 10 bases, your desire for it. I mean, 10's off the Richter scale for, 10, 11, 12, 15, 16. Some of it's 8 or 9 or 10. And, where you are right now has to be a definition. So where is it? Is it a +8, +10, +2, where is it? The next question that you have to ask yourself, what would I have to think about, or how would I have to think differently about this situation, this Coke, this cigarette, this drink that I'm having, for it to be not just a +8, but it'd have to be a +4? So at a +4, you have certain considerations of maybe that cigarette would have to be stale and dry. Maybe that glass of wine would have to be left open and is starting to ferment, it's starting to turn better. Maybe that donut would have to have been sitting out on the counter for several days, and now it's really turning lousy. What would you have to think about that particular situation, that action, that inactivity, for it to drop from a +8 or 9 or 10 or 15 down to a +5 or 4? Next question is, what would you have to do, or what would you have to think about that for it to be a +1? Maybe for the cigarette, it would be that it was laying on the counter and it was a little bit wet, but you're dying for that cigarette. Would you still have the desire to pick that cigarette up and put it in your mouth? Maybe that Coke has been out and it's lost its fizz and it's been sitting out for a couple of days, and it's kind of not as desirable as it was. Maybe that donut that you've had has been, and you notice that there's some hard crust on it, and the flakes are breaking down, and you actually see a little bit of mold on it. For some of you, that would be like a -2 already. Then the next question is, what would you have to do to make it a -2 or 3? What would you have to think about? What would it have to look about? And you begin to develop the scenario in your brain of these things, getting it ultimately down to a -8 or 9, so you would never, ever touch it no matter what again. And then remember that and imbue it. Take each one of those things that you're doing that you know you shouldn't do, the cigarettes, the drinking, all of those things, and begin to ask yourself the question, what would I have to think about or think differently to be able to change that down to a -5 or -6 or -8? I'm going to show you how to do that, and we're going to show you how to change who you are to achieve all you want in 2013. Welcome back. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. As always, I'm in studio. We are never can show unless it's, there's an accident outside and I can't get here. But 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. Love to talk to you. I've dedicated this program to you, to make you better in 2013. It's important. Tomorrow night is New Year's Eve. And all of us set all those crazy goals, and we make these, volitional statements. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. But what happens is that within a month or a quarter, you kind of give up. You're done. Or you find yourself back into the same old situation. I'm going to the gym. You hit the gym like 3 days a week, every day. And I'm going to get back in shape. I'm going to do this. But the problem is that you don't sit down first and decide what it is that you want to achieve. So we have to be specific. So those of you who have been listening since the beginning of the program have written down your 5 most important health goals, the things that you want to achieve. You're going to be very specific about them. You're going to view them relative to emotional states, and you're going to ask yourself better questions. You're going to ask yourself, who do I have to become on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis, month-to-month basis, to do all of those things consistently that will produce that outcome? See, the outcome is achievable providing that you identify yourself first, that you change you first. Once you change you, then everything is easy. Sometimes it's easier for the guy across the street, but nevertheless, it's still doable in accomplishing all those things that you set yourself out to. So what we have to do, first we have to set the goal. And we said that we have to be very clear on what it is that we're trying to achieve. Next thing, important thing, time frames. We have to have very, very specific and accurate time frame. Not someday I'll, because someday I'll never comes. That's that elusive island out in the Pacific someplace that we dream of that we never get to. But it has to be very, very specific. Here's the problem. Most of you expect way too much in the short term, and you don't realize how much you can achieve over time. So we have to be very specific about our time frames, but within the reality of that they have to be time frames that we can achieve things with. So I want to lose 50 pounds in the next 3 months. Well, a lot of you don't have the ability to be on The Biggest Loser with all the emotional support pieces and a trainer busting your butt, on a day-to-day basis, working 40 hours a week in the gym trying to get that done. So, you have the gym, you can get trainers, and you have to learn to eat. So time frame. Well, the goal is that if you can lose on an average of 1/2 pound to 3/4 pound a week on an ongoing basis, you're really doing well, because you're going to lose just muscle mass. If you try to do it too quickly, your body's going to knock it down because it has to burn up the amino acids. But if you say, by the end of next year, I want to be 50 pounds lighter, I want to be instead, remember, 180 pounds, I want to be 130 pounds if you're a woman. If you're 195 pounds, you need to be whatever it is you set your target for. You can do that over time. And then when you get to those specific areas, you have to celebrate what you did and then recalculate, reaffirm what you're doing and move forward. You need to have time frames. The next thing you have to put together are resources. Resources include people like trainers, nutritionists. Has to do with, if you're not feeling good, an acupuncturist, a chiropractor. It has to do with somebody who can get your head out of the lower portion of your body and get clarity and get, your head focused in a vision. Might be a life coach that you got to talk to. If you do those things, then you move forward. The next thing you have to do is that you have to have a motivational partner. Now, I'm giving you the short end of this stuff. There's other pieces in between. Motivational partner, somebody you've committed to, somebody that's going to hold you accountable. In my situation, I've got a couple people in my practice that if I say that I'm going to do X, Y, and Z and I don't do it, I will live to regret it. They will put more emotional pain in my brain than you can possibly think. So I use them as, I'm going to do this. I want you to hold me accountable. For some of you, getting on social media, getting on Facebook, getting on Twitter, and broadcast to all of your friends that you are headstrong, dedicated to do whatever it is, and you will be very embarrassed. See, because if you commit to yourself, the chances are that you're going to lie and you're going to tell stories and you're going to break your promises. But if you got somebody else out there that you're going to hold your accountability to, the more likely it is that you'll follow through. You'll do what you need to get done. It's critical. It's important. If you don't have that, it's done. Whether it's, it's in any part of your life, but you have to have accountability. And then you have to have people who inspire you. Find somebody who has done what you've done. Find somebody who looks like you want to look. Those of you who watched The Biggest Losers, ladies, if it's, if you're looking to emulate somebody, maybe Jillian. Those of you in my practice, maybe you want to emulate my daughter. Now that's a piece of work. I mean, she has taken herself. She has, I get a tweet the other day. She's a young woman. She's in her 30s. And, she tells me she's on the hack squat machine and she says, next level, 560 pounds on the hack squat. I'm saying, are you kidding me? I don't mess with my daughter anymore. But what I'm saying to you is that it's doable. It's all doable. But you have to put together those people, those things that are going to support you, the resources that are going to support you. But, going back to time frames and timelines, you have to take out your book. This is called a calendar. I don't care if it's in your back pocket, it's on your wall. And then you have to write down each day what time that it is you're going to do whatever it is that you're doing that dedicates yourself to changing your life. Okay? So next thing you do, do you know what a goal board is? Some of you do, some of you don't. A goal board is simply something that you can see all the time. And you take this big piece of construction paper, usually white, maybe 2.5 foot or 2 foot by 3 feet, and you put it up and you put a picture of yourself in the middle of it. An old picture, when you really looked good, and you had a lot of energy, and your face was clear, and you had a smile on your face, and you put that in the middle. Then you put all the things around it that you want to have, and these things have to be very specific. You have to put, if you want to drop down to 135 pounds, you put 135, just the words up there. If you want to, eat vegetables, put broccoli and put, lima beans and put escarole and put, okra and so forth, all the things, I know some of you are saying, I hate that stuff. Well, call my wife, call Sue. She'll teach you how to make them really, really well because it's New Year's tomorrow and we'll probably have okra at least on the 1st. So make sure you do that. But you have to put all these pieces together. You can't do it by yourself. You can't be trusted. So you have to have guidance. You have to have motivation. You have to get leverage on yourself and you have to begin to plan it relative to time frame. And not only what you're going to do in the next 6 weeks and a year from now, but 5 years from now and 10 years from now. See, your body will continue to change. And what we're doing is we're restructuring our genetic makeup. We're reprogramming what it is that we do. We're reorganizing our neurology so it becomes a natural pattern of achievement. And when you do that, when you set these goals, when you're specific about the goals, when you do those things on a day-to-day basis, no matter how small, how incremental, whether it's 1/3 of a percentage a day or a week, just think what it does exponentially over a period of time. Yes, it's all attainable. No, you don't have to suffer with diabetes the rest of your life. No, you don't have to be over fat the rest of your days, providing that you're willing in your brain first to take the first step and do something measurably different than what you are doing now. It has to be something that you can identify as you. You have to be able to measure your outcome, by the way. So you have to have measurements. Start where you are right now. If it's about your physical being, have your significant other, your husband, your wife, whatever, take a picture of you in your underwear against a plain wall and see what you look like, and put that up next to the picture that you want to become like. That's called motivation. That's called, oh my God, that's what I really look like? That's called motivation. But you got to be specific. It has to be measurable. Get that tape measure out. Get your butt on the scale. But don't weigh yourself every day. Once a week is plenty. Once a week is plenty. Take your blood sugars on a regular basis. Take your blood pressure at the same time all the time. But don't do it every day. You'll make yourself crazy. You're going to make yourself nuts. It has to be attainable. Some of you have been on medications for such a long period of time, particularly thyroid medications, and you've overdosed on it, that unfortunately sometimes you've destroyed your thyroid. Now, if you have a missing organ system, obviously you can't turn that organ system back on, but you can enhance everything else around it and make it much more powerful and better than what it is right now. So we have to have specificity. We have to be able to measure things. We have to have things that we know that are attainable. We have to, and attainable means not in our lazy minds, but in what other people have done before us. That's why it's important to find somebody who's achieved what it is that we want to achieve. And then we have to put the time frames, and as I said before, we have to be specific. You know, ask the question, what am I going to do today to move towards that situation? Some of you got to start just with your brain and start going and listening to motivational people. Some of you have to start listening to, the positive things in the world. We listen to the talking heads too much. We listen to all the negativity. We listen to all the garbage that's out there. I can put you in a very painful place relative to drugs and relative to your health and relative to all that. But what I want for you is to be able to put you in a place where you say, yes, it's time. I've had whatever time I have left on this planet, whether you got 5 years, whether you got 5 months, or whether you have 50 years or you have 75 years, it doesn't matter. Whatever you have today can be better tomorrow and can be even better than that the next day, providing that you're willing to dedicate time, effort, resources to yourself and be very specific about the applications. This isn't something that is an altruistic, someday I'll type of thing. These are very, very specific guidelines that you can achieve. If you set the bar too high in the initial phases, you can get frustrated. Small, measurable, achievable goals are what you want. Change by switching the white sugar that you eat all the time and you put in your coffee to honey. Switch your coffee to organic coffee. Start drinking water before you do anything else in the morning. Start making it a habit to put that water. Start looking for substitutions. Go non-gluten. Start adding vegetables. For some of you, that's a big deal because most of you don't eat vegetables. Or you have a salad that's made of iceberg lettuce once a day and you call that vegetables. Or the pickle that's on your hamburger and you say, well, I had vegetables. Or say, well, I had ketchup on it too. That's not vegetable. That's not how your body reacts. Remember, every time that you go to the fast food places, that for every soda that you have, there's about 12 to 14 teaspoons of sugar in that soda. Remember that everything that's fried is a free radical former and damages your body. Remember that when you go to, any of the fast food restaurants to pick up a hamburger, that they have an allowable amount of fecal matter that's in the hamburger that you can eat. Because they butcher these things en masse, and they have guts laying all over the place, and they don't clean them up, and all this fecal stuff gets in there, and you get sick. And that's why sometimes they recall things from the supermarkets, because they're not careful. But you're getting it, and you wonder why, when we do an intestinal tract microbiology, that we have all these ridiculous things that are living in your gut, and you wonder why your immune system is being destroyed. So when you think about that, maybe free-range beef is better. Maybe switching to brown rice and beans might be a really good thing. Maybe learning that there's even protein in broccoli and eating that might help you as well. Or knowing that you can eat free-range eggs because the balance of omega-3, 6, and 9s are adequate, in adding that to your diet. Maybe instead of, getting, something from wherever you can, a candy bar and a soda for lunch, that you do something and you shift and you get a natural food bar instead. Or you go to places like Mom's, or you go to places like Whole Foods, or you go to places like Wegmans, where they have natural things prepared and ready for you to eat. You can do some of that. Get yourself focused, make a list of all the substitutions and alternatives that you can put in your life, and then begin to make a difference, one piece, one step at a time. At the Roselle Center for Healing, we have something called our in-house continuing education programs. We do them every other week, generally throughout the year, and we have special events. We set these up for you. Why do we do that? So you can get the focus, the resources, the motivation that you need to change your health. But first, you got to change your perspective. You have to go to I want to. I see patients that come into my practice, and I've been treating some of them for many years, and some of them have made some differences, but then they get stuck. They get stuck at a certain place, and they don't go beyond that place. Why? It's because they haven't changed their identity. They haven't changed the person that they look at when they wake up in the morning in the mirror. That's step number one. You have to change the be. You have to do everything you possibly can to change that. Surround yourself with people who have similar thought processes. Don't get stuck with people who are negative nillies, because you wouldn't know what, you end up with the same old, and sometimes much worse. Welcome back. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You've been listening to Dr. Tom Roselle live, and yes, unfortunately, I have been beating you up today. Not really. I've been trying to encourage you to make a change. You've got 24 hours to think about it between now and tomorrow night going into 2013. This program is about you. This program is about making 2013 the best year ever. To do that, you have to change you. It's not the things that you do that are going to change you. It's you and the way you think and your motivations and the feelings about yourself ultimately will motivate you to do those things that you've been putting off. I got something else to do. I don't have the time today. I don't want to go down to the drugstore. I got to get rid of all this crap in the house. I got to throw all this. It's all money sitting there. Well, what if I told you that if you changed the way you are right now, if you did nothing more than you started walking every day, you did nothing more than started drinking water every day, you did nothing more than start putting some vegetables in your diet, and you got away from the fecal-filled hamburgers that you get at the health foods or at the fast food stores. If you just did that, what would you think, and what would you do if you knew that you would live better and not risk dying of a disease process by up to 50% or more if you do all of those things? Isn't that motivation enough? Or do you like the degradation? Do you like the breakdown? Do you like the wasting, the waning, the inability to do the things that you would like to do? How many of you are in pain but refuse to change and get the inflammatory processes out of your body? How many of you have lousy energy but are locked in to computer systems, and then you go home and you get back on the computers and you have lights on in your room, and so your pineal never sets down, so your hormones are crazy? What would it take? What would you have to think about yourself? For those of you who've watched Dickens' Christmas Carol, and you begin to realize that where you are right now has consequences in the future, meaning that if you keep doing what you're doing, not only are you wrecking where you are, but you're wrecking the things that you're going to be able to do in the future. The ability to be able to play with your children, to be able to play with your grandchildren, to be able to do things differently in your life, to achieve, to create, to do more. That's why we're here, is we'll be able to change our lives in a way that we leave an imprint of positive contribution. Some of you can't contribute positively to yourself, and that's why we do what we do. That's why I'm here every Sunday. That's why we set up a website called drtomroselle.com. Go to that website, drtomroselle.com, drtomroselle.com, and check it out. There's interactive learning there, things that you can do to apply to help yourself immediately. And by the way, after the program, by the end of the day, I'm going to blog all about this on Facebook. So those of you who are following us on Facebook, go to Roselle Center for Healing or go to Dr. Tom Roselle. and you'll be able to see all this. I'm going to lay it out very specifically for you. And if you'd like to talk to us, if you'd like to ask a couple questions, you can do that very easily by going to Roselle Center for Healing or go to drtomroselle.com and send me a note. Very interesting. Yesterday, I was communicating with somebody who listens to our program from Germany. And I'm saying to myself, Germany? How does Dr. Tom Roselle get to Germany? Well, we've had Germany, we've had Norway, we've had people from the Netherlands. In addition to Norway, it's like, wow, this program must be vital for a lot of people. So why don't you make it for you? Why don't you use the information that we're putting out, that we've been teaching for a lot of years, to change your life, your health? I know that I'm going to do things very differently this year because we have goals, 5-year goals, 10-year goals, 40-year goals. Yeah, I'm going to be around that long. I've got a lot of things I have yet to do. I have still, some motivational pieces for all of you. So set your goals. What aren't you going to be able to do if you don't? What happens to the fat on your body if you don't change something? What happens to the diabetes if you don't make a difference? What happens to your brain if you don't go out and get somebody to help you rearrange it and think differently about what it is that you're doing? What happens if you haven't explored all the things you can do without drugs, without surgery? What happens? How bad will you be? How good will it be if you make the changes? How good will it be if you become Jack LaLanne and die in optimal health at age 95? How good will it be if you have the vitality of someone who has a focus and intention of taking care of themselves? How good can it be if you commit today to making tomorrow a better time, a better place for you and your family? Think about that. 2013 coming up. I hope you make the changes. If I can be of assistance, you know that I will. I'm easily found. I wish all of you a very, very prosperous and happy New Year. I'm here for you. I always will be. God bless you. See you next year. Bye. Did you know that maintaining a total state of wellness is a choice? That you have total and absolute control over anything that happens to your health and wellness? This is Dr. Tom Roselle, author of Ageless Health 101, Health is a Do-It-Yourself Program. My book, now also available in audio version, is a step-by-step program of how to take control of your health and wellness without drugs or needless surgery. A state of total wellness is your choice. You have the capacity to change your health and level of well-being. Take control of your health today and order Health is a Do-It-Yourself Program. It will show you how your decisions can lead you to a life without impairment. You're in control. Health is a Do-It-Yourself Program.
Health is a Do-It-Yourself Program. Ageless Health 101. Available in paperback and CD. Featuring 3 easy-to-listen-to and follow-along CDs with bonus music selections, Finding Peace and Change is Beauty. For more information and to order, please visit agelesshealthbook.com. That's agelesshealthbook.com.
Did you know that breast cancer is on the rise and that routine annual mammograms can increase radiation exposure to breast tissue 1,000 times over a chest X-ray? The result could increase the risk of developing breast cancer. Now, consider a simple, non-invasive, and totally safe adjunct medical procedure approved by the FDA, which can detect evidence of breast cancer 5 to 8 years before it can be visualized on a mammogram. Infrared thermographic imaging can accurately detect initial signs of breast cancer, such as increased blood supply and metabolic rate, which is recorded as heat. Why expose yourself to radiation when accurate and safe medical detection is available? Call Thermography Centers at 888-485-7736. That's 888-485-7736. And for more information, visit thermographycenters.com.
The Roselle Center for Healing is a proud supporter of breast cancer awareness and reminds you to conduct a monthly breast self-examination and include a thermographic breast scan as part of your annual wellness checkup.